This is a very intentional and very exciting opportunity to hear from the lions in our midst. And I couldn't be more excited about it. Without further ado, this is the way this is going to work today. We have 4 speakers. The first speaker will be Tim Tozer. Tim is the GM and President of Quality Engineering Services of the Chippewa Valley. I also know him to be a committed husband, dad, and leader extraordinaire and world changer. Without further ado, please welcome Tim Tozer.
Well, I won't introduce myself much because Keith did that. But about 3 months ago, he asked me to speak here, and it was going to be a panel. We could write a few questions, and he would ask the questions we wrote, and then we could answer them. The first question I thought I would write is, "Are you crazy?" The next question is, "Who, me?" To be honest, I look to this group for my inspiration. I come here to be inspired, to look at leaders, how they're doing things, to learn how to be a better man, and then I use this as a launching point for me to then go out into the community and be and emulate the people I see here. So I was struggling, and I was going to tell them no. And so I took that to prayer. And the one word kept coming back to me: commit. So I did. In 4 days, God brought 3 people to me, 1 speech on television, and a song. He wrote it in an order that you're going to get. So what I'm not an expert because I'm not more than 50 miles away from here. I'm from Chippewa Falls. And to be an expert, you have to be more than 50 miles away. I'm not a fighter pilot. I'm not an Olympic athlete. I'm not a Marine Recon soldier or a Navy SEAL. Army Ranger, an Iron Man, not that. What I am is an ordinary man, an ordinary Joe, a sinner. And with that, I was like, what do I say? What do I tell these people? And I didn't know. It was provided to me. So, ordinary Joes can do extraordinary things. Signing up to be your coach, soccer coach for your kid, when you've never played soccer or never coached soccer, and you go to Google University and learn how to do it in 3 hours and coach for 8 years, extraordinary. When you stop to help someone with a flat tire, extraordinary. When you kiss your wife goodbye every morning and good night, amen, every night, extraordinary. When you come to leading with power, extraordinary. When you smile at all the people you meet, and you care for all the people you meet, extraordinary. So, there are tons and tons of opportunities every day that we come up upon where we have the opportunity to be extraordinary. Yours and your list is different than mine. So how and what is the approach to be extraordinary in things like this? I bring you a quote from Mother Teresa. It says, "If you judge people, you will have no time to love them. Not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with great love." Interesting story. The person who brought that to me was my training partner. She said that to me. We went to get a Christmas tree. A couple minutes later, went out to Elkbound to pick out a tree and everything. We're walking through the gift shop, and there's a 2x2 sign with that saying on it. Well, of course, I had to buy it and give it to her because, it just had to be. And then I take you to, well, what is this great love? And I look at 1 John chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. And it tells us, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and he who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not have love with him does not know God, for God is love. In this, the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him." So love isn't this thing that society has put upon us, this eros, this sexuality. It's this real concern, willing the good of those around us and serving them servant leadership. There's tons of things we can do. So by doing simple things with great love, right where we are, we can be extraordinary ordinary. St. Therese of Lisieux puts it this way: our Lord does not look so much on the greatness of our actions, or even of their difficulties, as at the love in which we do them. So it does not look at our difficulties, but at the love in which we do these things. So to do small things with great love, we have to get out of the boat. So I go to Matthew, chapter 14, verses 23 through 32, and I'll paraphrase. Jesus was on the shore. The apostles were in the boat. The waves were ripping against the boat. They were trying to batten down. He saw that. He started walking towards them. First, they thought that he was a ghost, and they were afraid. And then Peter looks out and says, Lord, if that is you, tell us to come. And Christ says, come. And Peter gets out of the boat and walks towards him, but his faith fails because of the ripping of the waves. He starts to sink. And he says, Lord, help me. And the Lord grabs on and grabs him, pulls him up, takes him into the boat, and all things were calm. All right, let's break that down a little bit. First, there was more than Peter in the boat, but only one man got out of the boat. Did he fail? Sure, his faith wavered. It failed, just like ours will when we get out of the boat, but that's okay. Then, he was there, and he called out to the Lord, and the Lord picked him up, brought him back into the boat, back into the calm. All right, so get out of the boat. We have to face our fear, step out of the boat, and do the small things with great love. Here comes the interesting part of this. So, if I'm going to tell you guys to get out of the boat, that means I probably should demonstrate that. And the next thing that God gave me, I logged into my Amazon Music account, the song Lions comes up. And so I played it, and it reminded me exactly of Leading with Power. I sent it to Keith, and he said, can I sing this? And his question to me was, well, can you sing?
Someone else, I said, it doesn't matter.
And then he said it doesn't matter. And thankfully, in the course of my speech, it doesn't matter how this goes either. Because I've written it to go either way. If it's great, good. If it's a train wreck, great. But I think the most important thing is to, this is our launching pad. This is where we're sent. And so I'm going to attempt to do the best I can. No accompaniment, a cappella, by myself, sing this song. Today we live, today we breathe, today we know that we are strong when we are weak. Today we trust, we overcome. Take every chain that kept us slaves and throw them off. We're not waiting for permission. We defy our inhibition. Like our middle name is fearless, unafraid. If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles. Arms out wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise. By your power we will go. By your spirit we are bold. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 we walk as lions. Today is ours, it's always been. Before we face the fight, we know who's gonna win. We live by faith and not by sight. We don't want safe and quiet. We don't want to run and hide. This is not an intermission. It's our time, not gonna miss it. You've already called us fearless, unafraid. If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles. Arms out wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise. By your power we will go. By your spirit we are bold. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions. Ho, 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 ho. Ho, 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 ho. Ho, 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 ho. We walk as lions. Oh, everywhere we go, the battle has been won. You've gone before us. So we take it hard on faith. With every step we take, we'll rise victorious. If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles, arms out wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise by your power, we will go. By your spirit, we are bold. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions. Oh, 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 we walk as lions. First time in front of people, I have a cantor in the back, hidden. So, a little bit. And then the last person he put in front of me was the speech from Jimmy Valvano. And a lot of people maybe know about the V Foundation in sports, and it was founded in 1993 when he was at the ESPYs and received the Arthur Ashe Award. And his motto for that was, don't give up, don't ever give up. But then there was a second half of that speech. He said, I don't have many days left. This is how I'm going to spend those days. He was diagnosed with cancer and dying. He died shortly after receiving the award. He said, every day I'm going to laugh. Every day I'm going to think, pray, contemplate. And every day I'm going to have my emotions move to tears. What he's saying is, I'm going to be connected enough where the pain and suffering of others around me or the joy of others around me make a difference. So, what I wish for you is that you laugh, either and enjoy each day, to think, pray, contemplate, to have your emotions move to tears. This is a great day, right? If we can do those things every day, that's a great day. You do that for a week, it's a great week. You do it for 52 weeks, it's a great year. You do it for 80 years, it's a great life. Exactly. So, get out of the boat. Do small things with great love right where you are. Allow your mistakes to change your behavior, because we're going to make them. Our faith is going to fail. Be extraordinary, ordinary. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Courageous. Next up, my good friend, Rick Metzenbauer. Give Rick a hand.
Hello. I'm Rick Metzenbauer, and I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about my wife, Tracy. I have 3 boys with my wife and 2 grandchildren. I have a daughter with 3 grandchildren. My parents are Larry and Sharon Metzenbauer, and my father-in-law, who comes to this regularly, is Ron Sandberg. I'm employed through Chlorine Incorporated. I've been in extrusion for 30 years, about 30 years. I started my career at SFR here in Chippewa Falls. Me and my wife moved to Minnesota. We lived there for about 13 years. We moved back here to be with family, and about 14 years ago, I've been employed at the same place pretty much since we've been back.
And your upbringing was smooth sailing. You had a great high school career.
Well, I was
Not exactly.
I was a shy guy, a little social anxiety, and at a young age I found out alcohol could turn that into a lot of fun, a lot of great parties. You can meet a lot of great people. People love my parties, and from there, things spiral downhill when you are mixing. I was living for the world, not living for the right things, trying to please everyone but our Heavenly Father. I didn't know. I'll start with, I was like 23, I was arrested the first time for DUI. At 42, I was arrested for my 5th DUI. So it was a long, long road of drug abuse and alcohol abuse. I had 3 first offenses, a 3rd and a 5th. I had 3 different states. Anyway, after my 5th, which was about 10 years ago, 9 years ago, in February, Super Bowl, week before the Packers won the Super Bowl. I had my 5th DUI. Things were really, the wife was leaving me, no family trust. Anyway, I was pointing in the direction of Jim Woolheist. A lot of you guys know him. He set me up with a lot of people that are here. Christ introduced me to Christ. I fell to my knees and accepted him as my Savior. I'm now 9 years sober. And Christ has set me free from all my addictions, my past addictions.
Total freedom's possible?
Total freedom's possible. Yes. I live by Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding, and all your ways acknowledge him, and you make your path straight. One of the verses I live on.
Tell the guys the story of some of your buddies during that life as a pirate, especially the trapping story. Tell us about the trapping.
I had two real close friends that I fished and hunted and abused drugs and alcohol and spent most of my days with, and hours. We'd have up to, sometimes up to 1,000 sets out, which took a lot of time and a lot of hours. My kids were always involved in these dangerous encounters with whatever we came across, but the drugs allowed us to stay awake for days so we could check all these traps. And,
Tell us about the big beaver.
Oh.
And what happened to it? Don't make me tell it, because I'll tell it.
It's like a record beaver. It was like 80 pounds. You couldn't carry it out unless you were a pretty strong man. I carried it for 2 miles, and it was the longest 2 miles of my life. But we caught them up in Boundary Waters. We were hired to take care of the beaver's rod control up in Minnesota. And we volunteered for it. Anyway, I got this beaver home and I mounted it. I did an Indian mount on it. I tanned it with its own brain matter and all this stuff. And mounted
The whole
on this-
beaver, right? The
Yes,
whole
the
beaver.
whole beaver. Well,
How
the
big was
skin,
it?
the skin. It was
Yeah.
bigger than that table, you know. I was bigger than any board. I don't know if anybody traps, but we got beaver boards, and you couldn't put it on a regular beaver board. You had to make one for it. So I had this mounted, and like all my mounts, I'm proud of. You know, this was one that was in the party room next to where I kept my cow who I slept with when I was drunk. He was my best friend at the time. At the end, towards the end, yeah. But anyway, we were gone one weekend, and the cow busted through into my shop where I party all the time, and then there was that beaver hide. He ate the whole thing. Ate the whole thing.
Now, I figured out a real convoluted way to make sure to tie in that story, because it's just too good of a story not to tell. But there is a tie-in, and what your heart here for these men, the message you want to get across, is also the message that you've been trying to get across to your former party buddies, right, and your trapping buddies. And how's that been going?
After I got baptized about 3 years ago, it was 3 years ago, 3 years in April, I went and seen some of my friends. Most of them are dead. The three of them are still around, Nemo and Dallas, and they're so lost. I want to show them who I was and who I've become, and I hope that it changed them, but so if anyone is struggling with alcohol or drugs, we're all men here. We all love each other. That's why we come here. So we can stand behind each other like lions and back each other up. But my life has been unbelievable since I've changed. And it takes one step. Open the Word and just learn and get closer to God.
What is that thing that you were searching for that we talked about, Rick? We talked about it this morning. What was it that in all of your drugs and all of your pursuit of alcohol and everything?
Love. There's always something missing in me, and I was searching for it all them years. And now I have more than I need. With all you men, and I have a church, of course, and a family there, and I have a family home, and it's just we forget really who we are. We're so lost, and it's hard to admit to our, we're men. We don't want people to know that we're losers. So that's the roughest part about breaking the chain of addiction is being a man and standing up, telling them your problem. So
I just wanted to mention, too, the guys that are speaking today are available afterwards if you want to talk to them about any aspect of that. And I was talking to Rick this morning about leading with power in every location. About 9 out of the 10 guys that we talk with either have a father wound or a church wound, or many of them have both. And Rick won't have a chance to share in detail today, but he saw some things within the church too that will turn a person off in the name of Bible study and then beating their kids at the same time. And so many guys that I've talked with have had such bad ambassadorships of who Jesus really is, and have turned off the very thing that would lead them to the solution, and that is, you said you have a church, of course. It's not always of course. It's
I'm sorry.
by the grace of God, you know? No, I'm glad that you do it. I know it's a course in your life, but it's not a course.
I have to have it, so, yeah.
So your closing message you share with what you think the guys can benefit from what you have as far as support.
Just get in a group, a study group, learn God's Word, get closer to Christ, lay it all out to Him, give it all, surrender, and your life will change forever.
And if you don't have one, yeah. Rick and any one of us up here can recommend a group. If you're not in a group of men, both Rick and I are on a different group on Monday nights, but a recent Monday night, the leader of our group went around the room, and we have about 20 guys there, and he just, instead of having the study, he said, why do you come here? And I'm going to tell you what one of the guys said. Dan Olson leads our group. He has a son, Chad. Chad has a lot of friends that work for Dan, and usually what happens, they come to eat, and then Chad and his buddies leave when the Bible study is going to start, right? There's a young man named Nate who used to do that, and then a while back he had a horrible bout of Lyme's disease. I mean, it really was bad, and he cried out to God, and God answered him and started healing him. And now he comes to the Bible study, and when it got to be Chad's turn to say, why do you come here? He said, because I'm 23 years old and I don't know shit. I wanted to put it on a poster and put it up in the shed. Because with that kind of humility and teachability, you can do something, you know? But the rest of the guys all said essentially this. They said, the men are authentic, and the Word comes alive. So those groups do exist. Lots of guys in this room are in those kinds of groups. But if you're not, it's tough sledding. It's tough sledding to do this thing on your own, and you don't have to do it on your own. So you can connect with me or Rick or any of the guys here if you're looking to plug in. Don't keep trying to do this thing on your own. Next up, a brand new good friend of mine, Dennis Simon. Come on up, Dennis.
Gentlemen, I'm Dennis Simon. I appreciate the chance to stand up here and talk to you guys today. I guess my theme right now, I've been a Christian. I live down by Hickston. I live 50 minutes from here, which could constitute as almost 50 miles.
Yeah, you're next.
So I should be an expert. Wow, okay. Anyway, but guys, my time is limited, so we're going to have to keep me on task. But I mean, my theme to you guys today is talking about time. Time is short. I've experienced a number of things in my life that really proved that to be very true. Back when I was 31, my dad had died of cancer and Alzheimer's disease. I was 29. I was 29 and had a great dad, had a great bringing up, and he was an awesome guy. But, you know, he thought he had a lot of time. And unfortunately, you know, he worked for a job there, and they gave him early retirement. He was 56. They said, we're scaling back this, that, whatever. You've been here long enough. We're going to give you early retirement. We'll give you full pension, full retirement. You can walk out the door at 56. And he came back home and said, I got the world by the hind end right now, because now I can start doing the things I wanted to do with my kids that I never had time to do. And he can just live life and travel and just be great. You know, but unfortunately, 3 months after he retired, he was diagnosed with cancer. 9 months later, he was dead. Okay? Time is short. Time is short. Another example of that, in my family, he diagnosed with cancer at Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's kind of runs in our family, unfortunately. I've lost 3 other cousins already to Alzheimer's before they hit 60. Approximately about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, my brother was diagnosed with cancer. He was like 58. And we're going, oh my God, we're going to start this all over again. Anyway, He automatically went on disability. He didn't lose his job. He worked for a company and had disability coverage. He had a retirement. Everything was going to look peachy and icy for him when he finally got to retire. But unfortunately, getting Alzheimer's, and basically he's still alive today. But according to the doctors, I mean, he's got a wife that's been taking care of him literally 24/7. And seen him over Christmas. We had our Christmas party and so on. He was there, but he can't talk. He can look at you. He can, every so often, something comes out, the archives of his brain that he was a funny guy for the most part, and he brings out these one-liners, and every just so often, or he starts laughing when usually he doesn't laugh, and it's just unbelievable. Sometimes you get around family, and you know, a great guy, but he's still sitting there with Alzheimer's. He doesn't know if he's going to the bathroom or eating lunch. So, I mean, he's got to be taken care of 24/7. And like I said, his wife is an angel, and she's been taking care of him all this time. My mother also did the same thing for my dad up until the last 2 weeks before he passed. Got to be Christmas, and after 9 months of changing diapers, feeding, locking the doors, I mean, it was a 24/7 job. And unfortunately, she said, you know, Christmas we had, he's laying there looking at you in a bed, staring at you. He can't talk, can't walk. And you try to figure out, why him? Why my brother? And but he's starting to fail quicker than we thought at this point in time. I guess my daughter-in-law said, according to the doctors, he'll be gone within probably a year because his brain is starting to slow up. It's a brain disease, obviously, and it starts shutting down your body parts because it doesn't know that you're supposed to be doing this and that. Your body, because your brain controls virtually everything. So everything is slowly shutting down, and within next year or so, he very well may be gone, but miracles do still happen. So we're hoping for one. You know, in the last 8 weeks of this year, 2018 turned out to be, it was a great year until about early December, when my oldest brother at the time, who's 61, he was at a Christmas party with he and his wife and having a good time. Drinking, partying, eating, having just a lot of fun. And this brother of mine, I mean, everybody loved him because he had such a sense of humor. I mean, he'd have the whole party rolling and laughing all the time. And unfortunately, he had a little too much to drink, and he happened to fall down a flight of steps. And they didn't realize he was even missing from the party, and they started looking for him, found him on the basement floor of this house, unconscious, not breathing. There was a nurse there, they did CPR, got him back breathing again. The EMTs showed up and got him in a hospital, and they put him in an induced coma, and he was there for 3 weeks in an induced coma. He ingested some vomit into his lungs on his way down to falling or whatever have you, but the bottom line is, after him being in an intensive care unit for three weeks, the doctors came and says, guess what, well, not guess what, but guess what, there's no hope. There's no hope. So time is short. We pulled the plug. It took all the tubes out of his mouth and everything, and we literally stood there as a family and watched him die. Left a wife and 2 daughters and 3 wonderful grandkids that absolutely adored him, and he absolutely adored his grandkids. But you know, time is short. Time is short. You know, and you know, since that time, I had a brother-in-law. He was in intensive care. He was in surgery. They almost lost him. I had a nephew, my oldest brother, with this Alzheimer's. Of all things, his son, 2.5 years ago, ran his own business, making a lot of money, having a great time, and diagnosed with cancer, and he died 2 years later. So this happened. So my mother, fast forward to my mother just recently, she had a kind of a fall, her heartbeat went down. Finally, she's now in a nursing home. The doctors over-medicated her is what they realized. And so now she's doing a whole lot better, but she's at 85 and she's going to a nursing home and getting people that are going to be around her all the time, which is where she needs to be. But again, time is short, you know, with mom. So, you know, going through my life, I've been a Christian more than probably 15, 20 years. I gave my life over to Christ after drugs, alcohol, and many other things to a certain degree. I'm an insurance agent for Combined Insurance for 33 years, and fortunately, when I see my dad die and watched him go after working his butt off for all these years, and I'm going, I'm just not going to be in that same boat. I'm not going to put myself in that same boat. My whole mission was to get an insurance business, and I just happened to land into this insurance business. And remember my dad always says, you know, you could sell ice to an Eskimo. And he had mentioned that numerous times, and I picked up on that, and I sold Kirby vacuum cleaners for a week or two or three and failed miserably as a salesman there. I got involved in Amway for about a year and a half with my wife and I, and worked the heck out of that system, and looking at all these millionaires and people making all this big money, and I wanted to be there but failed miserably. And to think after the three strikes and you're out, I'm now getting involved in the insurance business, and I'm going to go sell insurance. So, well, let's see how that works. But fortunately, by the grace of God and what was instilled in me as a young person, because, it wasn't instilled in me, but working hard was. My mom and dad worked hard. I watched my dad work three jobs to keep food on the table for me and my 5 brothers and sisters. But, I said, I'm never going to want to have to be in that position. I want to be able to retire or do something better and be prepared better than they were prepared better. And by the grace of God, I got involved in the insurance business and rose quickly to the top of the salespeople of our company. And back in 2010, I was the agent of the year nationally of all of United States. I was the agent of the year. And since then, have acquired another award that only 7 agents in the history of our company have ever achieved in 95 years with the company. I mean, the company's been around that long, but achieved this award, which was great and mighty. But since I've acquired these awards, and I used to have a much bigger head than I have now, and very prideful, thinking that I had a lot more answers than the rest of these people, and thought I could get away without loving my wife the way she needed to be loved, and not treating maybe necessarily my kids the way they need to be treated. But I made one point in mind, because my dad and mom were always at every sporting event I was ever in, and my wife and I mean, we were at every sporting event, any of our kids. We have 3 kids, 2 daughters and a son. But, they were very athletic, and one thing I just never missed, my job wasn't going to keep me from watching my kids play sports. So at least I was well-grounded in some things that worked. But, being now in the insurance business and being able to be semi-retired for about the last almost 15 years, working basically part-time, I come to the reality, that time is short. Time is short. I'm 60. My brother was 61. My Alzheimer's brother is 62. My dad died at 57, and I've lost other cousins along the way much earlier than that, and I'm just going, I need to get focused on 1, loving God, 2, loving my wife like she's never been loved before, because we had a lot of these constantly, yearly. This went on for years, and because I thought I was bigger and better than most people, and she ought to be able to bow down to me for all I've had to do and work and whatever. But the bottom line is, I was living for me, and I no longer make a point to live for me. I live for my wife, I live for God, I live for my wife. I'm here with you group of men because I came here 2 or 3 years ago and got tied into this, and I'm going, this is bigger than me. And I just need to live for Christ and get around other men that are men, because we as men need to be men. We need to step up. We need to do what I wasn't doing for years. And many of you guys are fortunate to be here and probably are doing these things, and I wish I was more fortunate or learned this earlier in life, but stubborn and hard-headed kind of gets in the way in many cases. But I'm here just to tell you right now that, leaving a legacy, wise men leave an inheritance to their children and their children and their grandchildren. And the whole idea, you need your legacy, they should be seen right now, daily. Because if you're with them, they ought to see the dad, the grandpa, the father that is setting the right examples and treating them right and cherishing them and loving them. And if you're like me, or was like me, or maybe you are like me right now, and you're going, that's kind of like what he's explaining. It's kind of like me. Maybe I'm talking to you. Hopefully not. Hopefully all you guys have arrived and beyond what I do. But James 4:6 says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Fortunately, I've been humbled from what I've seen from my family. So time is short, gentlemen. Don't wait for drastic things in your life to change, or losing a loved one, or losing your wife, because bottom line is we don't know the day or the time, but being prepared, we can do that. Be prepared for that day or time when God says, you're coming with me. And thank the Lord that He's in my heart, He's in my soul, and I can only hope my brothers know that, but honestly I can't tell you, because the brother that passed away, I had a short talk with him once upon a time, and it went south fast, because he was mad at God because my nephew at 39 died of cancer, and he was totally not on board with knowing anything or thinking there was a God, I don't think. But when he was in a coma, my wife and I, and they say a subconscious man in a coma state, they can still hear. And we talked to his ear. I told him, Dave, repeat this after me. Get it in your heart. Ask the Lord, to work in you, and ask Him for forgiveness of your sins, and ask Him to come in your heart, so when you do pass, that you're ready to go, and the good Lord hopefully is going to take you with them. So on the other hand, my brother, well, honestly, I have no clue, with the one with Alzheimer's, but he's in good hands, not only his wife, but I think that the Lord he's going to be in good hands. So thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Time is short.
So to finish our time together, now I'm going to introduce you to Tim Easker. Tim is currently the head of Human Services of Chippewa County. He's on the front line of battling the meth addiction and opioid problem in Chippewa County, the overrunning foster care challenge of Chippewa County. He's a believer in God, and he'll be the first to tell you that politicians and government are not the answer. Tim Easker.
Hey. Hi, everybody. You might have heard part of my story last February at the Leading with Power Couples event. But it started off is that everybody has these seminal moments in life. And mine started with these 15 words. Keep your hands where we can see them. You're under arrest for manufacturing THC. THC is the active ingredient in marijuana. It's illegal in Wisconsin yet. This was 2002. To complicate matters, I was also a federal probation officer, and I'd been employed as a federal probation officer for 15 years up to this point. I was leading a double life. And that's what I'm kind of talking about today, is that how can we as men reconcile what we do in private to what we want the rest of the world to see, what's out there in public. Because that's really the key to serenity. That's what was for me, and we talked about some of the other men with the substance use issues and so forth. Absolutely, I get it, and that's why I think I was led to the point that I am right now to be in the position that I am, and I'm so blessed and honored, because I've heard the men speaking here before, and I told Keith I don't feel like I should be able to tie their sandals, but that was before I learned about God has used broken men in amazing ways throughout history, and it's just the way it is, and I'm not going to argue with it. So those 15 words, it drives home in a dramatic fashion the pitfalls of living a double life. And I was hauled off to jail in Dunn County. That was May 14th, 2002. And I remember that night, spending the night in jail was one of the longest nights of my life. And I remember the next day waking up, and there was some activity going on. I was in a holding cell. And I wondered what was happening. Well, there was a tour going on throughout the jail. And I flashed back to 1982, when I was in the police science program. This is prior to grad school and everything else, before I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was taking that first tour in a penal institution. And all I could think of is, how did it get to this far? How did it get to this point? I had yet to learn that secrets lose their power in the light of day. It's been a key for me. It's been a huge key, because I spent many years and was really effective at hiding my secrets. So, where does that leave me? I was the youngest of 5 children. My dad was a World War II vet. He'd be 96 years old if he was still alive. My mom would be 94. Hardworking guy, worked in a foundry for 31 years. Strong as a bull. This guy was an animal. If only he was as strong mentally and emotionally as he was physically. Suffered from a lot of depression, anxiety. I know he had a lot of anxiety, but he did the best he could. We spent a lot of time. We spent weekends. I'm the one that got him into hunting and fishing. For whatever reason, I was just drawn to it, and we spent our weekends doing that. But like I said, and that was something I understood because in my teenage years, that's when I started with the anxiety, the social phobia. You know, and all of a sudden I was at the point where somebody introduced me to alcohol and was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I can talk to people. I felt comfortable in my own skin. I'd have never been able to get up and give a talk like this, but you know, that's before I learned God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. And I learned that alcohol and later marijuana were just some wonderful things to cope. But the only problem was that you always had to get sober, at least I did, because I was leading a double life at that point, young in life. I was very much into athletics, I was in school, and lived that double life. Check my notes here. The problem is, it's usually an hour talk. I'm trying to condense it into 12 minutes and get in the salient points. And for whatever reason, I was drawn to a career in law enforcement. And I knew I had this other stuff going on, but it was always, I was going to quit. You know, it got to that point where I was going to actually get into law enforcement, I was going to quit. So then I went on to bachelor's degree, and then I ended up getting into grad school. And during this time, too, I also got involved in the martial arts, which was really a godsend for me. It gave me really discipline, it gave me focus. And it was also during this time that I lost my dad, May 5th, 1980. The anxiety and depression got the best of him, and he ended up killing himself. So we had all that going on just as I was a young man, you know, starting off my career. I didn't have that strong male role model, you know, that we talk about is so critical in a lot of our lives. But I have a lot of other buddies that had a lot of fun, you know, and I was living a life run on self-will. And if I'm driving the bus, it was probably going to be a lot of fun, but I don't know if it was going to be real productive. But I continued to move on through school, and I was very successful in that. Got into grad school, martial arts, I kept on competing, doing real well in tournaments, and I ended up getting involved in the PKA, the Professional Karate Association, which that was prior to MMA. There was no mixed martial arts back then, even though I really like watching it. It's a guilty pleasure. But what that was about was all stand-up kickboxing. So I got hooked up with Tommy Hall, who was the #1 ranked heavyweight at that time. And I was going to grad school in Milwaukee. And again, it gave me just total focus, but I was living that life. I'm partying my brains out on the weekend. I would be able to quit for a week or two, you know, before a fight, but afterwards it was just go to town again. And then I got hired on as a federal probation officer, and as I'm waiting for my background check to get completed by the FBI, which went for 3 months, of course, you know, I was kind of puckering during that whole time, wondering if I was going to be found out. Past that, and my life continues. October 9th of 1987, my mom passed away from a brain tumor. My substance use disorder continued to grow, and I found other substances to help deal with the pain and just kind of get through life. So that continued on. I tried geographical moves. I tried a lot of things, and nothing really seemed to work. I always went to church. I was always a believer. But I remember one of the things that kind of drew me to Keith is what he talked about is that religion separates us from God. And that's one of the things it didn't hit me until years later. So that brings us up to May 15th, 2002, and I'm getting let out of jail. I've got 3 young kids. The oldest is 3 years old. I've got a wife. I was making almost 6 figures back at that time. I had a mortgage, I had a place up north that I just bought, and I had bills, and I had no clue what was going to happen on this. And then Rick Badger, a friend of mine from the Alliance Church, he was a federal probation officer in Madison, who was also a pastor in the Alliance Church, and I always thought it was kind of a front back at that time because I was pretty skeptical, and I had seen the worst, and I figured it was just a way to maybe get women and so forth. I never knew what was in this man's heart. He called me up and just said, you know, this is going to be the fight of your life. This is a 10-rounder. He said, and you're only in the first round. You know, and it was at that time that I ended up, he hooked me up with Pastor Jack over at the Alliance Church in Menominee, Wisconsin. And that's when I gave my life to Christ. And was it kind of a foxhole conversion? Yeah, I was taking rounds all around me. I had no clue where I was going to go. And I was still facing all the embarrassment, the shame. I was never so ashamed in it was horrible. I almost didn't want to be released from jail. I would almost rather have just sat there and just let things happen. And then I remember an old friend of mine, Jim Coons. He's a retired state patrol officer. He's in his 80s, but I remember Jim calling me up and saying, Tim? I said, Jim. He goes, how are you? I said, things kind of suck. And he said, well, the bluegills are on the bed. we'll grab our fly rods next weekend. We'll go. And I said, okay. And he said, you going to be okay? And I said, yeah. And that's kind of how my recovery went. To the first NA meeting that I ever went to. And I wanted to go to the Menominee meeting just because I didn't want to know anybody that I had on supervision. And of course, as I'm standing there, somebody walks up to me and said, hey, didn't I used to have you as a PO? And I said, hey, Billy, how you doing? And he goes, what's going on? And I was so afraid I wasn't even going to be accepted in that circles. And I said, hey, I got busted. I was growing pot for my own use. I said, I'm a flipping mess. He said, welcome, man, you belong here. And he gave me a big hug. And that set the tone for the rest of my recovery. You know, looking at people that I would have never even thought of associating because I was too good, you know, at that point, but people that just lived life to the fullest and embraced a clean and sober lifestyle. There's other things that happened during that time. I had an income to replace. All of a sudden, my next door neighbor shows up. He goes, hey, I can pay you $10 an hour to milk. That was huge. You know, for me, I never did, so I love barns, I always did. But I never did so much healing as I did in that barn. Crying, laughing, dreaming about things. It was great, and that's at that moment when I realized, you know, I want to really continue in social work. I want to really continue on helping people. I need to be able to give back and move on. So I remember his brother coming over and saying, hey, I got a corral to build. I got 40 pounds of ground burger. Do you want it? Yup. He's showing up with chickens. I got these chickens. You want them? You're going to have to butcher them. Yup. And before you know it, we got a freezer full of food. We're going to make it through. And God bless my wife during this time because she was the one who ended up going to Human Services in Dunn County. I don't think I would have done it if it was up to me. I didn't have enough humility. We ended up getting energy assistance. We ended up getting on the WIC program. And things like that, and moving forward that way, just so our needs were met. Incredible woman that she stuck by me through this. But it was just, as I tell people I sponsor now, it's doing the next right thing. What do? You suit up, you show up, and you do the next right thing. And I remember in the Alliance Church, some of the sermons, I swear they were, you know, because when you're an addict, you believe the world's all about you. You know, so I was still kind of thinking that every sermon was tailor-made just for me. And I remember the Sermon on the Mount about that, because it was probably 3 weeks after I had gotten busted. Again, no job, no clue how we were going to make ends meet, and there was to talk about the Sermon on the Mount. And talking about, don't be like the pagans running around, worrying about what you're going to wear, running about what you're going to eat. It's like the loaves and the fishes. Our needs were always met. It was absolutely just incredible. You know, it's like Matthew 6:33, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. And it's truly beginning to believe those things. I still have my moments, you know, where I kind of want to get in and drive the bus a little bit, or worry excessively about some things. But again, like I said, with leading to me where I am now, with what I've experienced, the help that we've had to receive and ask for humbly, I think it puts me in a lot better spot in the position I am. We have empathy for those folks that we work with now that are coming to us that find themselves in a bad spot. You know, addiction is all about putting that ahead of your loved ones. It's about putting it ahead of your job. And it's an illness. That's one thing we have to understand is addiction is an illness. It's a brain disease. It's no different than heart disease. It's no different than anything else, any of the mental illnesses. And that's one thing that I really push hard is for people to understand that there's no difference between mental health and physical health. It's all the same thing. There should be no stigma attached to any of it. So moving on, I like to talk about, end up with this. This is called People of the Second Chance. It was a daily devotional that I had read years ago. It's actually Friday, November 13th. I think it was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. And the Bible verse is, "O Lord, you are so good, so ready to forgive, so full of unfailing love for all who ask for your help." And the story goes, while speaking to some CEOs, we met a man whose past was filled with drug and alcohol addiction that bankrupted an earlier company he was leading. He is now 2 years into his sobriety and is back leading a thriving corporation. However, he avoids conversations about his past because he believes such conversations would undermine his overall leadership in the company. So he guts it out alone. pretending this part of his story never existed. But the problem is that it did exist. He isn't able to embrace his whole story and truly give himself a second chance. We want to be different. We want to be known as people of the second chance. People of the second chance embrace the other half of the story, the sloppy, the shameful piece. People of the second chance rally behind the flops and the prodigals. We champion lost causes. People of the second chance also give themselves second chances. When we have experienced personal, professional, or relationship failure, we refuse to be defined by our mistakes. We learn, and we grow, and we have the courage to move on. And it talks about thought to apply. We are all failures. At least all the best of us are. If you're dealing with something, I know out there right now, I call it cyber crack, pornography, addiction of any kind, reach out. That's what we need is guys like these guys here. That's what feels so comfortable. This isn't like in the old days when I'd be, you're all hammered. Hey, buddy, I love you. Are you pissing at me? When you're telling your innermost stories, this is something when you get up and you talk about it and you feel good, just because there's just such a connection. So we're all struggling at times, and we're all here for one another. So, with that, I'm going to close. Thanks so much. Appreciate the time.
I love all these guys, and I love Tim, and I always tell people about Tim. I said, Tim is really a nice guy, but he'll kill you if he has to. And he knows how to do it.
And I ended up the other day at the doctor thinking I'm going to get my shoulder cleaned up. I said, I'm throwing overhand rights. And I said, it's hurting. I said, can you just go in and scope it and clean it up? He goes, there's nothing to clean up. It's arthritis. I said, no. He said, you might not be 57 between the ears, but you got 57 plus on that right shoulder. I said,
So if I'm going to come at you, I'm going to come from the right then. All right. Gentlemen, our time is up. I urge you, I encourage you, we're going to have a ball at the couples event. Don't miss it. It's going to be a night of fun. If you've never been to one before, come to this one. I want to thank our sponsors for that, Down to Earth, Combined Insurance, and our big sponsor, our overall sponsor, Markward Motors. Thank you for all you do to make this possible. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.